what do you have to do to get below 10% body fat? Let's talk about that. How's it going, guys? My name's Richie Kirwan, and today we're going to talk about that completely arbitrary 10% body fat number that people love to put on the pedestal of ideal body composition. We'll cover the importance of calories, protein, fats, and carbs, and how to figure out how much you need to help you drop body fat while maintaining as much muscle as possible on your quest for sub 10%. Let's get started. If you want to finally get your body fat percentage to the low teens or below from a nutritional perspective, you have two main goals. Number one is to lose body fat, obviously. And number two is to maintain as much muscle as possible while doing it. So let's talk about both. When it comes to losing body fat, if you're looking for some sort of magic bullet, I've got bad news for you. Because every single diet that has ever helped someone lose body fat in the history of all diets has done so by creating a calorie deficit. That means you're going to need to eat fewer calories than you burn until you get to your goal body fat percentage. All the most well-known diets, be they low-fat or gluten-free, keto, South Beach, carnivore, whatever, all of them work because they get people to cut out a load of foods from their diets, which makes them automatically eat fewer calories and lose weight. But you're better than those people because you're watching this video and you don't have to try some stupid fad diet to lose weight. You're welcome. Now, there's a lot to cover in this video, so bear with me. The principal way weight loss works is very simple. Just eat fewer calories. But in practice, it's not easy at all, especially when we live in a world where you can have a kebab, a curry, a bucket of fried chicken, all followed by cake and ice cream delivered straight to your house within minutes of ordering, and all without leaving the comfort of your chair. But that's a conversation for another video. So let's start with figuring out the calorie deficit you need for fat loss. There are two ways I recommend. Firstly, you can calculate your maintenance calories. That's how many calories you need to maintain your body weight. There are loads of websites that use your height, weight, age, gender, and activity levels to calculate how many calories you need to maintain your current weight. Don't worry about which one to use. They're all pretty much the same. And by that, I mean they're all educated guesses of your calorie needs. The reason it doesn't matter is because you're going to be adjusting your calories over time. So it doesn't matter much where you start. So once you know how many calories you burn to maintain weight, if you want to lose body fat, you just need to eat fewer calories than that. But how many? Well, remember what I said about the two goals of getting sub 10% body fat. One is obviously fat loss, and the other, which is just as important, is muscle maintenance. That's important because the bigger the calorie deficit you use, the faster you lose body fat, but you're also more likely to lose muscle. The current research that we have shows that slower rates of fat loss are better for maintaining muscle when someone is getting very, very lean. Now, if you have a lot of body fat to lose, you're less likely to lose muscle while losing body fat, so you can have a bigger calorie deficit. But if you're below 20 to 15% body fat, slower is going to be better. Starting your diet with an approximately 20% deficit is probably a good place to start. So for example, if your maintenance calories are about 3,000 calories per day, that means you'll reduce them by 600 calories, 20% of 3,000, bringing your fat loss calories down to 2,400 calories per day. You can spread that out over the entire week if you'd like. So on weekdays, you could have fewer, and on weekends, you can have more calories, just to make the weekends a little bit more social and enjoyable. But how do you even know if your calorie deficit is working? Well, you also need to measure your progress. Without monitoring your progress, you have no idea if what you're doing with your diet is actually working. The easiest way to do that is by weighing yourself. You want to do it daily so you can get a weekly average, because your weight can actually fluctuate hugely from day to day. So a weekly average is a much better indicator of your progress. There are plenty of other ways to measure your progress too, taking measurements around your hips and waist or taking progress photos. But the scale is probably the simplest, especially at the start. Now, I mentioned you're going to need to make adjustments over time because your weight loss will eventually slow down and even stop, even if you're still eating what was a calorie deficit for you at the start of the diet. This is totally normal and happens because when you lose weight, well, lighter bodies need less energy, and there's also some metabolic adaptation to dieting. This just means your metabolism slows down a little to compensate for the reduced calories. The only thing you can do at this point is to drop calories a little bit lower to get back into a new calorie deficit again. It sucks, but that's unfortunately how metabolism works. So far, we've only spoken about calories. The next important nutrient to talk about is protein. There are 3 reasons you may want to make sure you get enough protein while losing body fat. Number 1, protein is the most satiating macronutrient, meaning it helps keep you feeling fuller for longer than other nutrients like carbs or fats. Number 2, protein helps to maintain muscle, and if you're cutting, the whole goal should be to maintain as much muscle as possible while losing that body fat. And number 3, protein has a higher thermic effect of food, meaning it requires more energy to process it than carbs or fats. While the effect is small, in the long term, a higher protein diet may be more beneficial for fat loss than an equal amount of calories from carbs or fats. So, how much protein do you need? Well, we have research to show that as little as 1.2 grams per kilogram of body weight per day is enough to spare muscle while losing weight, as long as you're doing resistance exercise. But the research has also shown benefits for body composition with doses as high as 3.4 grams or even 4.4 grams of body weight per day. But I'm not saying you should eat that much protein. So, how do we calculate your lean weight? Simply multiply your height in meters squared by 25. So if you're 170 centimeters tall, that's 1.7 meters, and your lean weight is 1.7 meters squared by 25, which is 72.25 kilograms. This is what I use to calculate protein intake for all of my clients. So if your ideal weight is 72.25 kilograms, just multiply your weight in kilograms by 1.6, for example. And that's how much you should eat in terms of protein. That works out at 115.6 grams of protein per day, hopefully split up evenly over 3 or 4 meals. For some of you, that probably doesn't sound like a lot, but there's evidence that that's enough to maintain muscle on a long diet. But you can always eat more. Great whole food protein sources include lean meat, eggs, fish, dairy products like yogurts, cheeses, quark. The reduced fat versions may make it easier to control calories too, and vegetarian sources like tofu, textured vegetable protein or TVP, mycoprotein products like corn, beans, peas, and lentils. Protein powders can be a cheap and convenient option too if you're having trouble getting enough protein from your diet alone. Now, one last thing on maintaining muscle while dieting. I've said that protein is important, but all the protein in the world won't save your muscle if you're not training in the gym. Resistance exercise is simply the most important signal you can give to your body to hold onto muscle while you're dieting. It's a far stronger effect than eating more protein. Okay, so let's move on to fat. Along with protein, fat is an absolutely essential macronutrient. And there are essential fatty acids, which means you absolutely need to get them in your diet to stay healthy. On top of that, if your diet is too low in fat for an extended period of time, it can have some serious effects on your health. Low fat intake can affect your hormone levels, like testosterone, and you can end up feeling weak, tired all the time, and you can even see a major drop in your sex drive. And nobody wants to lose their libido just for the sake of a six-pack. So, how much fat should you eat? Well, we don't actually have an official bottom level of fat intake. But if we speak somewhat conservatively, starting with 0.8 grams of fat per kilogram of body weight is a decent place to start. So if you weigh 70 kilograms, that works out at about 56 grams of fat per day as a minimum. Again, keep an eye on how you're feeling, and if you start feeling really fatigued and lose your sex drive or will to train, increasing your fat intake might help get you feeling better again. Great fat sources include nuts and nut butters, seeds, grind them up so you can actually get the fats out of them, olive oil and oily fish at least twice a week. And if you don't like oily fish, consider taking a fish oil or an algal oil supplement to make sure you're getting your long chain omega-3 fatty acids. Keep your saturated fat intake low, again for health purposes, by reducing your intake of fatty red or processed meats, coconut oil, butter, and cream. The one thing to be careful about with fats is that they have a lot of calories per gram, so they can be easy to overeat and don't provide a whole lot of satiety. Which brings us on to carbs. Now, carbs have been given a pretty bad reputation for people who clearly don't understand nutrition science and think that carbs make you fat. They don't. Excess calories do. You'll often hear that carbs aren't essential, so we don't need them. Now, while they may not be essential for life, carbs do offer a lot of benefits. They help improve training quality, they reduce fatigue in the gym, and in general, whole food sources of carbs are much more filling than fats and provide fiber, which is very beneficial for your long-term health. On top of that, carbs stored as glycogen in your muscles may even help with muscle growth and may help reduce muscle breakdown. Long story short, carbs are awesome. Try and fit as many in as you can while still being in a calorie deficit and losing weight, and the whole fat loss experience will be a lot easier and more productive for you. I really recommend getting the majority of your carbs from whole food sources like whole grains, such as oats or whole wheat products, starchy tubers like potatoes and sweet potatoes, fruit and vegetables, and even beans, peas, and lentils. They'll provide you with a load of vitamins, minerals, and phytonutrients to help keep you healthy, and they'll also provide a lot of fiber to keep you feeling fuller for longer. Oh, and if your calories get really low, like at the later stages of a fat loss phase, it can be a good idea to try and eat the majority of your carbs before training sessions to make sure your sessions are as good as they can possibly be. Nobody likes working out when they don't have any energy, so make sure you carb up before training. Now, before we finish up, I also want to mention something about your rate of weight loss. Like I said, if you have a bigger calorie deficit, you lose weight faster. While some people like that because it can keep them motivated, personally, I think a slower rate of weight loss is better. One, it's easier to manage because you're not dropping your calories crazy low, which will just make you feel deprived really quickly. A hard deficit right from the start can lead to people just getting sick of a diet, giving up, and robbing a bakery at gunpoint. And number two, like I've said, slower rates of weight loss will help you maintain more muscle mass, which makes getting below 10% easier in the long run. Which brings me to something most people don't mention about trying to get below 10% body fat: time and patience. Sticking to a strict diet for months at a time is damn hard, especially if you've never been that lean before. You're going to need to be strict with your food, and you might not be able to enjoy social functions as much as you'd like. Your appetite hormones will eventually get a little deranged, no matter how much protein or veggies or fiber you fit into your diet, because most people's bodies actively try to fight against weight loss. That's a remnant of our evolution, because losing weight when food wasn't secure could end up being fatal. That's not so much a risk these days. So you're going to need a lot of patience, a lot of mental resolve, and some damn good reasons for wanting to get to 10% body fat. Which brings me to this question: why do you want to get below 10% body fat anyway? It's the most arbitrary number in the world of fitness. 10% looks different on everyone, and you might not even like how you look that lean. You don't need to be 10% body fat for health reasons, and in fact, getting a lot lower than that has some serious negative health effects too. So, what do you think? Has that answered your questions about how to get below 10% body fat? As always, if you have any questions, let me know in the comments below, and remember to like and subscribe to the Myprotein YouTube channel for more great evidence-based nutrition information.